Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. We're really excited today at the Nonprofit Show. There's been kind of a buzz about the office. We have the founder and the CEO Emeritus of Family Promise, Karen Olson, joining us today. And she's also the author of Meant for Me. It's a wonderful reflection of her life in the nonprofit sector and finding purpose and how that works and what does it look like when maybe you change your life. And so it's the new year. I think a lot of us think about these things at this time of the year. And so I'm really excited, Karen, to have you join us today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you, Julie.
It'll be a lot of fun. Hey, we have a lot of fun each and every day, and we have an amazing cadre that supports us in that fun and in that purpose. And they are our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Fundraisers Friday, our new Friday shows just dedicated to fundraisers and their world. Your Part-Time Controller, Third Sector Company, and Clear Impact. These are the folks that join us day in and day out. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I have this super wonderful group of co-hosts that come to us from across the country. They're very diverse in who they serve and the work that they do within the nonprofit sector. And so I'm flying solo today, but I hope that you've been able to get to meet them and know them as I have. Okay, Karen Olson, founder and CEO Emeritus of Family Promise. Welcome, my new friend.
Thank you.
You wrote a book, Meant for More. I think it's such an interesting, reflective piece on following your heart and finding your purpose, as it says in the subtitle. We're going to get into this with you and talk more about what this life and this journey has looked like for you. And Karen, I kind of want to use your wisdom today, but also your inspiration as we look forward to what we can be doing right in our own sector. So let's start off with the journey into nonprofit service for you and how it got started, because you tell an amazing story about a very chance encounter. What was that?
Mm-hmm. It's a chance encounter with a homeless woman who sat outside of Grand Central Station, and I had seen her before. At that time, I was a marketing executive. I was developing a coupon and sweepstakes event for products like chick razors and Listerman mouthwash. And I was on my way to a meeting, and I saw this woman who I'd seen before. And on impulse, I felt like I couldn't just pass her by. And so I ran across the street and I got a sandwich, a ham and cheese sandwich, and an orange juice, and I gave it to her. And when I gave it to her, she said to me, "Thank you. God bless you. I haven't eaten since yesterday." And we started talking a little bit, and she reached her hand up to mine, and I took her hand in mine, and I knew at that point I had crossed sort of an invisible line. I had always wanted to help people, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. Here I was, a marketing executive, and being quite successful. I enjoyed the work, but there was a longing in my heart for something more to make a difference that was meaningful. I didn't consider sweepstakes and couponing events for chick razors and Listerman mouthwash, what I really wanted to do. Was a far cry for offering comfort to people who were suffering. So that led me into getting more and more involved. I enjoyed my job at the Warner Lambert Company. It was competitive, it was creative, but at the end of the day, if I was lucky, maybe I increased the market share of chick razors by, 0.4 of 1%, something like that. So
Right.
It wasn't satisfying my soul. And that's the driver. I think you have to be passionate about something, but then you need the skills to make it happen.
You need the skills. And I find it fascinating that you were in a place of such strength to understand how you needed to be able to communicate and you needed to be able to share a story. And I personally think that's got to be the one trait or skill set that you had that projected you onto this amazing journey. Can I ask you how old you were when this happened and when you started really digging into homelessness in America?
Probably 38, I think. Don't hold me to it, but yeah.
So you were a young woman who had um, enjoyed success and learned her craft, if you will, correct?
Yes, that's right. I was divorced and raising two sons who were, I began were about 10 and 12. And, I didn't intend to start an organization. I just took one step and another. And meeting Millie changed how I felt about homeless people, because I know my grandmother had always said, don't go near them, they're dangerous, et
Sure,
cetera, and so on. But
sure.
they're people. And I could relate to Millie's humanity, and that opened me up to doing more. We began bringing in sandwiches to Port Authority bus terminal. Did that for almost 2 years, every other Sunday, and we got to know people by name. We even had them back to our house at Thanksgiving time. So I wasn't thinking of starting an organization then. I was just following my heart and what seemed the right thing to do. Now, a lot of people probably thought I was crazy going into Port Authority with sandwiches, and especially with my two young children, but I never had any fear. And, I met wonderful people who were they seemingly invisible and felt discarded by society.
Mhm. Over the trajectory of your career and looking at the issue of homelessness in America, you mentioned the fear that your grandmother instilled in you. My grandmother probably did the same thing. I mean, that was kind of like one of those things. That's the other. Those are, we don't engage, a different way of thinking about problems and social services in our country. How do you think homelessness in our country has changed? And maybe start with how we think about it as a society, or are we even thinking about it?
I don't know if we're thinking about it, but if we do think about it, for many people, homelessness is the man lying on the subway grate or the woman pushing all her belongings in the shopping cart, reaching into this trash can for a bite to eat. That's who we think the homeless are, but actually 35% of all home people experiencing homelessness are members of families, and they're the fastest growing segment of the homeless population. And we say, well, we don't see any homeless families. You don't see homeless families because they're invisible. But the woman who served you your burger as you were going through the drive-through of the fast food restaurant, she says, enjoy your day and God bless you. Little do you know that she's actually homeless, and that evening will go to her car to sleep. So family homelessness, you don't see.
Mhm. I so appreciate you bringing that up, because I think one of the things that we forget in our country, that we have the classification, if you will, working poor. We
Yeah.
have people that have jobs, sometimes
Mhm.
many jobs, and yet they're not earning a wage that can help them
Right.
sustain, and especially if they have a family, or they have a family with other problems, special needs. I mean, it's so easy to get behind, and I'm sure with Family Promise, and we'll talk about this next. I mean, overcoming obstacles and how we look at this, it's got to be an interesting trajectory for you, looking at a problem, looking at wanting to serve, having your own obstacles, and then understanding or learning how to overcome the obstacles of a client base, right? Can you talk a
That's
little
true.
bit about that?
When I met homeless families, they all have one issue in common, which is they lack housing, but some need mental health services, others need counseling on a day-to-day basis, help in finding jobs, and social services. And that's what Family Promise does, working with volunteers and case managers all across the country.
Mhm. It's an amazing, it seems to me in my lifetime, Karen, that we've had to redefine what homelessness is, what the root causes are, and we've kind of navigated, well, I should say, I hope we're navigating away from this concept of these are lazy people or people that won't work, because it's much bigger than that.
Yeah, it is much bigger than that, and it's really an issue of poverty. That's the core issue, and the symptom is homelessness. In other words, it's the gap between one's income and the cost of housing. That's the root cause. But the precipitating cause for them becoming homeless may be an illness, a divorce, loss of a job. But the root cause is the lack of affordable housing. And the minimum wage hasn't changed since 2009, the federal minimum wage, and that's $7.25 an hour, and that's just impossible to live on and pay for food, rent, and so on. So yeah, it's a real crisis, but there's a lot that volunteers can do to help. We have affiliates, close to 200 affiliates across the country, and volunteers do so many things to help. They prepare meals, they stay overnight with the families, they tutor children, but they also help provide job leads, help write resumes, donate cars. So it takes a lot of services, and there's a lot that volunteers can do to really make a difference.
I love that you bring that forward, and I want to move into the next thing of, this concept of the power of small acts of kindness. And you talk about your legions of volunteers, 200 affiliates across this country from something that you started. And talk to us about what that power and that small act of kindness can do. I would argue you're the perfect case in point. You started with a ham sandwich and an orange juice, and it led you to change the trajectory of your life to something much bigger than yourself. How do you kind of see these small acts of kindness?
They come up in many different ways. I'm thinking of a niece in Albuquerque. She was staying at one of the churches as part of the Family Promise program, and she had to get up very early to go to work because her car had failed. And so Alan, a volunteer, would come and pick her up at 5:30 in the morning, and he would stand outside waiting for her because he didn't want to disrupt the others who were sleeping. And he learned that she liked lattes. And so this one particular morning, he stood outside the door with a cup of coffee in his hand for himself and a latte in the other. And when she opened the door, he held his two hands out, and she said she saw the latte, and she said, "Alan, you're going to make me cry," and she did. So here was this volunteer just offering a latte, but it moved her to tears that somebody would care enough and see that that's what she wanted, that would actually do that. So you never know how people can be moved by a small act of kindness.
Yeah. I love that, because I think you made the comment when we first started chatting this morning about being seen, right? And that is somebody that's seeing another human being. And I love that story. I think that's a great way to think about how we intersect and engage with populations in our own communities, and what that looks like. Again, we were talking about this in the green room. I think sometimes in the nonprofit sector, we think that things can only be solved with like major grand actions. And that's true to a certain extent. But those small things that move us forward on all sides, I think sometimes we forget to acknowledge. So I love that you kind of pulled that back. I also want to talk about and ask you your reflections on how community impacts mission. I got to think, and maybe I'm off, but I got to believe that the Port Authority didn't maybe look kindly upon you for delivering
I
food.
guess not. No, not really.
I mean, because
because they wanted people who were homeless out of there. Yeah. And we did get a few nudges, but there really wasn't anything they could do. But they saw the people who were experiencing homeless as a problem, said they wanted them out. And
Right.
we saw them, suffering, and anybody who was sitting on a bench probably wasn't waiting for their bus, but they were simply homeless. So many of them, but it became a way that we could connect with people who were homeless.
Wow. In your early days, and I've got to believe it's still going on, but did you find that you had to communicate some realities or some differing philosophies to donors? And I mean, we'll start with the Port Authority. I
Yeah.
mean, did you have to kind of enter into some conversations that maybe
Yes,
you
most
hadn't been-
definitely. Well, the
yeah.
first thing I did when I knew I wanted to form an organization was that I planned a conference on family homelessness, because people in Summit, where I lived, um, only knew people primarily who were chronically homeless in New York, because it was a commuter town into the city. So I planned a conference on family homelessness, and I invited speakers, family members who had been homeless, to speak. And so I felt that awareness had to be the first and foremost. And that's what, catalyzed the idea of providing shelter. I'd say this to anyone who is thinking about starting a nonprofit, that, you can do it. When I first started the idea of helping people and families, I didn't even know what a nonprofit was. Yes, I later took courses at Columbia in nonprofit management, but I didn't even need that in the beginning to do what I was doing. There's many transferable skills. You need to do research, who's homeless and why. You need to have people who believe in what you're doing to spread the word, and then you need to provide services. But it's very logical. You have to just make sure there's compelling need. And once we knew that the need existed, but we knew the need was also there on the part of volunteers who wanted to make a difference. So, I found my way actually to developing this major national nonprofit, which even surprises me, because I just put one foot in front of the other.
Right. I keep thinking, Karen, about the trajectory of your life and the impact that you individually have made. Um, and I want to say thank you, because it's just so profound. But I keep going back to the gift of your ability to market and to understand how to communicate. And I've got to believe that that skill set drove you and the organization to grow your volunteer base. And I'm wondering if we could chat a little bit about that, because it seems to me we're in this time of great shift where we have people retiring, and maybe wanting to do volunteer work, or seeing a different piece of their life. And I'm wondering what you see and how you see that impacting our sector.
There's so many ways that people can help and make a difference, and they should just reach out and do it. It may be starting with small things like, leaving a gift bag for a new neighbor, or helping to cook a meal for a sick neighbor, something like that. But those are just individual things. But people, if you want to help, there's many different ways you can help. But you have to turn that into mission. Say you like animals or dogs, then maybe you find that there's not enough rescue facilities for dogs. So you would start that, but you got to be clear that there's a clear need, and then form the organization around that, and then communicate that need and have volunteer opportunities.
Right. I think that's one of the things that we in the nonprofit sector, we don't do a good enough job with kind of communicating out, and even I would say structuring our volunteer opportunities, managing volunteers, and kind of really looking at that as a labor source, because it's an HR issue at the end of the day. It's not that easy, and it takes some thought, but wow, what a difference it can make to a mission and to an organization. With Family Promise, it sounds to me like you have always relied on your volunteers.
That's true. The volunteers can do amazing things for families in need. They have contacts for jobs. They can help write resumes. They even have contacts for housing, and they can help families do that. But that's above and beyond. In our program, we ask for volunteers to prepare meals, to stay overnight, to tutor for children. But once they meet homeless families and understand what they're going through, they want to do more. And that's a significant part of our work, and why there's an 81% success rate with Family Promise and help families to find housing. And a lot of that comes from volunteers.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I think that's an amazing stat. And I don't care what type of nonprofit you work with or you lead, that to be over 80% of a success rate is a phenomenal number. And then, especially if you layer in the complications and the unique needs of a homeless family, or a family that's like teetering, right? Like on the edge. And if they don't get some type of help, if they're pushed into homelessness, that's incredibly, incredibly remarkable. I'm really been so engaged by this concept of volunteering. I'm wondering if you could talk about how volunteering has shifted since you first started Family Promise. Do you see anything of a trend or things that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, well, people have gotten very busy, and when COVID happened, that's when a lot of volunteers understandably stopped volunteering. And so it seems with our affiliates, it's harder to get volunteers to stay overnight. So factors like that, like COVID, really influenced us in a negative way, but yet we still found ways to help and make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen a clarion call of sorts, if you will, for getting more skills based volunteering, like people to build websites or to do the IT or do, assist in management, things of that nature? And the
Yeah.
reason I ask this question is because an aging population that's moving into retirement, they're leaving the workforce with amazing skills.
Wonderful skills, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of our volunteers are seniors, and they have tremendous skills from building websites to, working on computer issues, doing a whole bunch of things that can help. They can help families in our program do a search for jobs, for housing. They have those skills. They know how to write resumes. They can meet with families who are going out on job interviews and do a trial run of the interview for them. So there's all kinds of things. We have another volunteer in one of our programs that does makeovers for the women. They can't afford that. Another volunteer takes photographs of families. They've never had a family volunteer photo. And so they're able to do that. So, and others help families learn how to cook, So almost any skill that you have, can be used and needed by families who are experiencing homelessness.
Mhm. If somebody were to be listening or watching this episode of the Nonprofit Show, how would they learn how they could volunteer within their community?
Well, for as far as Family Promise goes, they can go to familypromise.org, and you'll see a listing of volunteer opportunities and where our affiliates are. So that's an important way to reach out for the Family Promise affiliates. And again, there's a variety of things you can do once you connect with an affiliate,
Yeah, amazing. Well, I don't have much time left with you, and I warned you in the green room that this would go by really quickly.
It has, yes.
It really has. I want to spend just a little bit more time on your book. It meant for me. It's just such an
Meant for
interesting.
more.
Meant for more.
Meant for
Excuse me.
more.
I think
it
it's
may
meant
be
for.
it could be meant for you, but it's meant
I
for
think so.
more.
I think that's how I'm thinking of this, Karen, is that it's like, wait, this is speaking to me, Julia
Yeah.
Patrick. Meant for more. How long did it take you to write this?
Oh, too long. I started thinking about it 10
Yeah,
years ago, and
yeah.
I began working on it. And then, unfortunately, I had an accident that put me in a wheelchair. I fell out of a cryotherapy chamber.
Mhm,
So that delayed my progress on the book. But
mhm.
then when I healed and got a lot better, I work with someone who's very skilled at writing and very connected to Family Promise, and that's Jen. And so I think it took us after that about 3 years to get the book together.
Awesome.
And yeah, and really what it's about is a lot of people are longing for something, but they don't know what that is. Is it this next vacation to the Bahamas, or is this next, sparkly gold bracelet? And that it satisfies for a time, but after a while it's very short-lived and it doesn't fill you up, and the longing persists. So when you reach out to people beyond yourself, you begin to feel that, gee, happiness is just catching up with me. So that's why I wrote the book, to inspire people to
Yeah.
reach beyond themselves and help others. And if they're already doing that, it's an affirmation of what happens when you reach out.
I love that because I think sometimes um, I love how you wove in like where you might feel or you might be led to something that you think is going to fulfill you, but at the end of the day, it doesn't. And the
Right.
meaningful aspect, I think that's I love that you said that because I think if you talk to anybody who has a life of service, whether they are a paid professional or they're just volunteering and their off times, um, the meaningfulness and the quality of life increases so much with participating, volunteering, serving your community. And so I love that you explored this. I also think that you're a great person to be talking about this with a trajectory of decades in the field and leading a very leaving a lucrative profession to navigating a national organization. It's been an amazing journey. I'm so honored that you would come on the nonprofit show and talk to us. I hope that somebody watches this episode and sees themselves or maybe gets permission to pursue something like what you have done. It's really been an honor, like I said, to have you here. Karen Olson, founder and CEO Emeritus of Family Promise, with more than 200 affiliate organizations across this country. They are doing amazing things. You can learn more about Karen and her book, Meant for More. Although I will forever think of it as meant for
For
me,
me.
Karen.
Okay, that's fine. That's even stronger.
You can find more about Karen at KarenOlsonAuthor.com. Meant for More, Following Your Heart and Finding Your Purpose. You can buy it online, however you like to buy your books. Karen, this has just been such a meaningful conversation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Julia. I enjoyed it very much. And I
Good.
hope it helped.
Well, I could told you it's going to go by fast. It's super kooky, but it really does. And it goes by fast, even for me. Hey, we have these amazing supporters that join us day in and day out. And those are our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Fundraisers Friday, Your Part Time Controller, Third Sector Company, and Clear Impact. These are the folks making a difference for nonprofits across this country. And we are delighted that they are in our corner supporting the nonprofit show. Karen, as I end each episode of the nonprofit show, we have this mantra that we say, and it's so funny because it means something different to me every day, depending on who our guest is. And today, it's really yet again it means something different and very, very powerful. And the message is this: to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everyone. We'll
Nice.
see you back here.